You're listening to Beyond Wellness Radio, bringing you the cutting edge in health, biohacking, and sports performance. Stay up to date and listen anywhere and anytime on your computer, tablet, or smartphone by subscribing on iTunes. Catch your host, Dr. Justin Marcagiani, as he answers your burning health questions as well as interviews from world-renowned guest experts. For more Beyond Wellness Radio, go to beyondwellnessradio.com.
Hey there, it's Dr. Justin Marcagiani. Welcome to Beyond Wellness Radio. Feel free and head over to beyondwellnessradio.com where you can access our full podcast transcriptions. While you're there, you can also sign up for our thyroid and female hormone video series. This series goes into the root cause of why your hormones are out of balance. While you're there, you can also schedule a functional medicine consult with Dr. Justin, myself, where we'll dig deeper into the root cause of your health challenges. Feel free and think of sharing this podcast with at least one person. This podcast grows by people sharing it. Sharing is caring. If you can think of one person that can benefit from this information, please feel free and share it. If you're enjoying the podcast, make sure you subscribe on iTunes. You can also click below the video or podcast where you'll see the iTunes review button and leave us a review. You can also sign up for the newsletter at beyondwellnessradio.com where you'll get updates before anyone else. Thank you so much and enjoy the show. Hey guys, it's Dr. Justin Marcagiani here. Guess what's up? The Thyroid Reset Summit is live today. So make sure you click below. There'll be links where you can access the summit. Make sure you register. I'm giving out my full free 88-page ebook. It's the first 3 chapters in my 12-chapter book. It's going to be amazing. I'm here with Evan Brand as well. Evan's was a phenomenal interview as well. So make sure you subscribe to go access Evan's interview. There's going to be links below where you guys can access it all. I appreciate it. Evan, welcome to today's chat. I'm excited the Thyroid Summit is here.
Yeah, I'm excited too. Your talk is today. So if people want to hear me interviewing you, that's day 1 of the summit. So your pretty face is on there and you gave a stellar interview and there's already tons of good comments. We were just reviewing that together. There's tons of good comments and feedback coming in already on the summit and we're still in day 1. So this is like the open house, so to speak, of the summit. If people, have been living under a rock or they just don't know how summits work, basically what it is Justin put together 30 plus expert interviews. These are anywhere between 30 and 45 minutes in length, and they're all on the topic of thyroid health. So he's going to get into anything from autoimmune thyroid to gut infections in thyroid to mitochondria in thyroid to chemical toxins to trauma and stress and how that affects thyroid and hormones. So each different expert has their own unique view, and he makes sure to extract as much information as he can. It's all free. You just register free. So thyroidresetsummit.com, you go there, you register free, put your name, your email in, and you can access it. As long as you get on your computer or your phone on the day of the talk, you can access about 5 talks for free every day for a week. And then after a week, depending on what your all's feedback is, they'll probably do an encore. You get one last chance to view them for free. And then what I recommend you do is you buy the summit. It supports Justin. It supports the mission. It gets this information out to the masses because your average doctor is not having the type of conversations that Justin is having on this summit. These are conversations that are very advanced and something that's still broken down simply for you to understand. But in terms of the timeline here, it could be another 10 years before mainstream doctors are even addressing the stuff that's being discussed now. So don't wait. Don't suffer. Buy the talks. It ends up being like $50 or something. It's ridiculous how cheap it is. And you can own all 30 talks. You'll get transcripts, etc. Is Justin paying me to promote this thing? No, he's not. It's just freaking awesome. And I've already read the book. And the book is amazing and the summit is amazing. So please buy it and support him so he can keep buying grass-fed steaks so that he can stay healthy so that he can do a podcast with me.
I appreciate that, Evan. Thanks so much. So just, being a thyroid expert and also being part of the summit yourself, what are some of the topics that you feel like are most compelling for you in and around the area of thyroid? I have a couple in my mind, but what resonate with you the most?
Oh, man. Well, I would say the ones on trauma. You've got Nikki Grotrix on there, which is just incredible because I think trauma is something that, we already know this. As Americans, we repress our emotions. We repress our traumas. We try to just move on. We ignore our traumas. We throw them under the carpet, and we just don't want to talk about this stuff. But what you and Nikki discussed was amazing, which is the fact that depending on how your childhood was. You talk about the ACE score, the Adverse Childhood Experience score, and how what you all are seeing, and I'm seeing the same thing too, is that the higher the ACE score, the more likely it is that you're going to have a problem. And it could be a thyroid and or an autoimmune thyroid problem, all linked back to something 20 years ago. And so you all had a great discussion about, well, how do you start working on these things that happen to you? It's not to say, hey, we need to go back to counseling and, go take the guy into counseling with you who beat you up 20 years ago. It's not that. It's no, there's ways you can clear these traumas from your body. And a lot of it is free. So I think that's probably the most powerful starting place.
Yeah, and also a lot of these traumas too, they affect the HPA axis. And some people that they may have addressed the issue, but they're kind of dealing with the collateral damage, whether it's adrenal issues or gut issues and or compromised immune system, maybe even infections just from all that stress, or maybe even they developed an eating disorder, which has created all kinds of adrenal and blood sugar and nutrient deficiency. So we got to look at everything from the root cause. Okay, is the root cause addressed? Okay, good. And now we got to also do damage control as well, but while fixing everything in a root cause kind of manner using nutrients and support.
Yeah. Now I will say, if you just focus on traumas and nothing else, and let's say you start doing the EFT, the emotional freedom technique, which is the tapping that you and I both love. I love tapping. I'm going to start tapping as I'm talking because it feels so good. So when you start tapping, this is basically like acupuncture without the needles. So you're helping to basically recalibrate your nervous system so you're not stuck in fight or flight. And I'll do this like if I go on stage or if I'm going to go on an airplane, I'll just tap it out. And I just feel really good from it. And there's practitioners. This is such a powerful tool. There's practitioners. That's all they do is tapping. Now, you and I will both agree that tapping by itself is probably going to be pretty limited. It's not going to be fixing root causes, but can it help reset the nervous system, which could therefore improve your thyroid health and potentially lower your thyroid antibodies? I would say absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, if you have significant unresolved trauma, especially in the area of sexual abuse or just issues growing up, eating disorder stuff, control issues, or any kind of abuse, I think it's really important, especially if I'm talking with a patient and have you really fully resolved that? Can you go back and think about it and talk about it? And does it not really bring your emotion up, let's say past a 3 out of 10? And if they can't answer that, or you start to hear them sob on the phone or on the video, and that tells me we got to go work on that. So it really just depends on how much they've done to resolve and to move past that. But if they haven't, then I have people that I refer out to that really dive in with that work for sure.
Yeah.
And again, that activates the sympathetic. That activates the sympathetic fight or flight kind of nervous system response. And if that keeps going, that can just be a drain on your adrenals. And we know how important cortisol is to inflammation. And if we have thyroid issues and autoimmune thyroid, and we don't have enough healthy levels of cortisol to deal with that stress, or if our cortisol levels have been depleted via HPA axis dysregulation, that brain talking to the adrenals, that feedback loop is disrupted, that can definitely create some major challenges for sure.
Yeah. So we should talk about reverse T3. We actually had a question here from Doc JC. Said, please go over the significance of reverse T3. What range do you feel is optimal? It seems to be frequently ignored or not seems to be so significant. Thanks. Looking forward to the summit.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Now think of reverse T3 as like metabolic blanks for our metabolic magazine or gun cartridge, so to speak, right? We put all the bullets in it. The metabolic blanks, they take up space where an actual metabolic bullet would be. We fire the gun, we get the noise, but we have no bullet coming out. Basically, these reverse T3 compounds, they're blocking the receptor sites. Every single cell in the body has a receptor site for thyroid hormone. So when we have excess reverse T3, it's going to clog up that receptor site for T3, and it's going to decrease the ability for that T3 to fill up the receptor site. Also, you have T4. Let's say you have 80%. Let's say you have a higher percent of T4 convert to reverse T3 over T3. It's also robbing the ability for that T3 to be fully expressed. So imagine we have, let's just say we have 10 units of T4, all right? Just hypothetical numbers here. And let's say we're typically converting 80% to T3 and 20% to reverse T3. There's naturally going to be some reverse T3 levels. Let's say anywhere between the low teens to the upper teens, right? Maybe that's a good level, right? That's the actual lab reference range. In my analogy, let's say we have 20% going to reverse T3, 80% going to T3, our actual metabolic active thyroid hormone. Well, typically when stress starts to happen, low calorie diets, more stress, adrenal issues, inadequate levels of selenium, we may start to see a 70-30, a 60-40 split, where more of that building block is going to reverse T3, less going to actual T3. So we're having less T3, but we're also having the congestion of the receptor site. So that T3 that's now there, the lesser T3 that's there is not able to dock in to that receptor site. The lock and key method's not able to go in because someone put gum in the keyhole, so to speak.
Yeah, great analogies. Let's take it a step further. So what happens then? Because you and I, we've tracked my blood for several years. Little did I know I was living with mold, and that mold was messing up my thyroid. That was part of the problem. I had elevated reverse T3, and you and I would look at it, and we'd be like, okay, let's look at gut. Okay, stool test is clean. Let's look at adrenals. Okay, adrenals look decent. Well, where the heck was this reverse T3 coming from? In my opinion, I believe it was all the stress that my immune system was dealing with, because I had elevated white blood cell count at the same time as I had elevated reverse T3. So it's not that it changed my game plan of my protocol at all. It was really just an indicator of, okay, so here's why I probably have cold hands, cold feet. My body temperature was running like a 97.7. Unless you tell me I'm wrong, I think that was all related to that reverse T3 being so high. I was in the 30s.
Yep, it could have been. And we also know, if you have a liver stress, right, the liver is really important because it makes enzymes that are going to help activate thyroid hormone, and it also helps to clear reverse T3. So it makes sense if we're stressed, glutathione from toxins in the environment, that could affect our ability to clear it as well.
Yeah, I think I was like 35 on my.
I remember that was very high, very high. And again, how we can see low calorie diets increase reverse T3. That's why in the long run, cutting calories to lose weight doesn't work, because it just slows down your thyroid. So then when you come back to reality and you actually are eating a normal amount of food, now your metabolism's lower, so now you end up storing more fat on the back end.
You want to know something crazy related to hormones and gaining weight and all that? So something I learned the past few weeks is that mycotoxins can actually bind to your leptin receptor. And this is why some people have gained weight on like 800 to 1,000 calories. It's because the mycotoxins are preventing leptin signaling from working properly.
Yeah, I know. I had a conversation with Dave Asprey a couple of years ago. There's a compound called zearalenone. It's a mold kind of earpiece they actually put into the ears of these cows, and the zearalenone literally causes the cows to convert more of their calories to fat.
Oh my god,
that's what it does. So they would use some of these. That's a mycotoxin. They'd put it in the cow's ear. It'd be like a little pellet, and they would reabsorb it through the ear canal. And this is, firsthand from Dave Asprey. And it would cause more fat gain. So it would allow them to convert more calories to fat, which, bottom line, more weight on the scale. So more cost per cow, so to speak, because it's all weight driven. So yeah, mold and mycotoxins are a big one. All right. And we'll do
If I did another interview on your summit, my whole talk would be about thyroid and mold, because I've had tons of hypothyroid symptoms. Now, I still have 6-pack abs, so I'm still ripped. But I had like cold body temperature, cold hands, cold feet, and all that related to mold. So if I did an Evan on Justin Summit Part 2, it would be all about mold and how I think so many people with thyroid problems probably have mold in their house that's helping to destroy their immune system and cranking up reverse T3, elevating liver enzymes, reducing detoxification. Then the body's got to try to focus on mold, and then it can't focus on other stuff. So then chemical toxins get built up. It seems like a huge linchpin.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is do all the things first and leave that to the end, because you did it that way too. And then we saw there was an issue, and then we dealt with it on the back end. My biggest concern is mold and things like that can be more on the expensive side, and it can be a rat hole for some people, meaning if they do the foundational things first, they may get some significant relief up front. And it won't be as costly as dealing with the mold on the back end. But
it won't be as overwhelming. It won't be as overwhelming.
Yeah. And the only exception being, hey, there's an active leak. You got water stains on your ceiling. There's you can actually actively visualize mold or water leaking. Then I would say that it has to be dealt with right away. That'd be the only caveat.
I probably stayed afloat a lot longer than I did before I developed a lot of major symptoms, because I had all the foundations in order.
Yes.
And so that's why the summit is going to be key. It's not designed to replace a consultation with Justin. If you have thyroid problems, you still need to consult with Justin for sure. But this is more designed for you to get the information you need, for you to get the questions answered that you have in your head. And once you have all those questions answered, you're going to learn more about types of thyroid lab testing that you need to run, reverse T3 being one of those markers. These are things you can bring up to your endocrinologist or your GP and tell them, hey, I heard on this summit, this guy, Dr. Justin, talked about XYZ. Can you do that for me? And we've had clients report back to us and say, hey, thanks to you or thanks to your podcast, I was able to get this and this and this run on my blood work, and my doctor only ran it because I asked him to. So if you just go with the status quo, you're probably not going to get the results you're looking for from the mainstream. Now, if you find a really good endocrinologist or a doc that's going to listen and run these extra important thyroid markers that are not generally run, you may be able to make them work, or you got to go to the functional side. My opinion, I'm going to say go to the functional side, because your endocrinologist is never going to look at the stuff Justin's looking at and saying, hey, these bacterial infections do this parasite does this. It's the last thing you're going to hear from them. They're going to say, oh, you can go to an infectious disease doctor. You think you have parasites? And they'll just refer you out and you'll go nowhere. That's why we're kind of generalist and specialist all in the same token.
Exactly. That's a really good point. Let's kind of dive into the next question here. Let me pull it up. Let's talk about Maca and hypothyroidism. So number one, if we see Maca is going to be really good, especially for women. There are some good Maca forms for men too, but it's going to really help modulate estrogen levels. It can even help with progesterone levels. So why is this helpful? If we have estrogen dominance, that can definitely increase thyroid binding globulin and decrease the amount of free thyroid hormone. So it can definitely lower our free thyroid hormone. So if we modulate our female hormones and improve that balance and that estrogen to progesterone ratio, that can definitely improve the amount of biologically active thyroid hormone. Also, if we're in a estrogen dominant state, we need good levels of progesterone, and progesterone helps stimulate thyroid peroxidase and make thyroid hormone. So good enzyme activity from TPO is important, and that can help make thyroid hormone. So good levels of progesterone help with that as well.
Can you talk a little bit about age? I mean, this is something that you ask your average woman age 50 and above, they're going to say, oh, my thyroid, or oh, my hormones. Can you talk about kind of what happens when you're transitioning from a normal cycling female to you go into perimenopause, menopause, post, when you go through those stages that lead women to say, oh, well, it's my hormones?
Yeah. So in general, typically women may start their perimenopausal phase in their early 40s. This is where like a lot of these menopausal symptoms start to happen, whether it's skipping a cycle, mild hot flashes, mild hair loss, mood issues. And again, it's hard to distinguish perimenopause and just PMS and cyclical hormone imbalances, especially where I see a lot of these symptoms happening with women in their 20s and 30s. It's hard to distinguish, but you're typically seeing some of these menopausal symptoms. They may happen throughout the month, where the premenstrual symptoms are just tending to happen a week, maybe a couple days, sometimes 2 weeks before a period. So you got to look at it and distinguish. Typically what's happening is you're having a decreased ovarian reserve, and then the estrogen and the progesterone are starting to drop. And sometimes you see estrogen drop a little bit slower than progesterone. So then you still have low hormones, yet still have estrogen dominance. And again, perimenopause is done once you've had no cycle for 1 year. So you have that kind of in-between phase, and lower adrenal function is going to predispose that, because your adrenals are making a lot of precursor hormone that's going to provide building blocks for your sex hormone. So lower adrenal function, cortisol stress, HPA axis stress, that communication from the brain to the adrenals, when that's dysregulated, you're draining that backup battery generator to help make more of the hormone. So when that follicle reserve starts to drop, then the adrenals can help pick up the slack.
So would you say all women postmenopausal should be on some type of adaptogenic herb hormone support? And can that replace or remove the need for like bioidenticals?
It depends how strong their hormones are. It depends how strong their adrenal glands are already.
Okay.
Number one. And number two, it depends on how severe their symptoms are. So
Okay.
We'll use specific phenotypes of Maca for perimenopausal women or menopausal women that can help. Some do need adrenal support, obviously, and then some may need some of the bioidentical progesterone, estrogen support. It just depends on their severity, their symptoms, how long it's been going on for, and how their hormones look, adrenal-wise, female-wise, and thyroid. And this is where it's tough, because hair loss, it's a thyroid symptom, but also lower female hormones can cause it too. So can like colder temperature and weight gain. That could be a thyroid issue. It could be a female hormone issue. This is why testing is so important. It really allows you to like walk into the situation clinically feeling like you're on top of what's going on.
Yeah, well said. And I wonder, does that change much if a woman's had like a partial or a full hysterectomy, where maybe she's got her ovaries gone, the uterus is gone? Is that like, hey, there's no way adaptogenic adrenal support is going to help you?
Well, as soon as they have a full hysterectomy where the ovaries are gone, they're menopausal right away, right? So they're automatically in menopause. If it's a partial hysterectomy where the uterus is gone, typically that's happening from maybe a fibroid, maybe some endometriosis. A lot of times it's done in haste because there's excessive bleeding or hemorrhagia, and the doctor's like, let's just pull it out, which is crazy. Like, let's fix the hormones, let's fix the underlying issue. A lot of times you can keep your uterus. Now, there's some literature, if you look at some of the endocrinology texts, there's some people saying that, hey, your uterus may be producing some level of hormone. So it's possible that you keep your ovaries, you get your uterus removed, but there still may be some hormone stuff that happens, right? It's kind of like with guys when they get a vasectomy. There's some research showing, you can still have a drop in testosterone after a vasectomy. What happened? You didn't touch the testicles, right? But when you mess around with that anatomy, there's probably some feedback loops that are disrupted. There's probably some hormonal secretion that's happening from that tissue that we're not quite, fully aware of. So that's why, when in doubt, always try to keep the tissue in place if we can.
It's crazy. I mean, for us to think, it has no purpose when you're age 60, just because you're not menstruating, those organs have no purpose. That's bizarre. I mean, if it had no purpose anymore, it would come out just like a placenta comes out after a woman delivers a baby. That organ is there, and then that organ is not needed anymore, and the mom pushes the placenta out, and then you're done. You don't push out the uterus. So it needs to be there.
Exactly. It definitely needs to be there for sure. So on that road, I think we answered that question.
I've got another question for you. Okay, so we got one here. Can you discuss molecular mimicry?
Yeah, so in general, we have surface proteins on foods, especially gluten and casein, and these surface proteins, they get tagged by our immune system. And there are other surface proteins on tissue in the body, like the thyroid, that can look similar. So imagine you have someone who just did a crime and they're driving a black Honda Civic. Well, Honda Civic's a pretty popular car. Police come on the on the radio, APB, be careful, just a person in their 30s driving a black Honda Civic. You're driving a Honda Civic, you get pulled over. Why? Because you have a similar identification that was called on the APB there. So what does that mean? Is surface proteins can be similar. And so, of course, when that APB is called out by your immune system, aka the immune system makes antibodies to target this surface protein, and other tissues have a similar surface protein like the thyroid, then your immune system can attack it. And that's what you're seeing. That's why gluten is such a big deal. Also, gluten also opens the gut lining. And when the gut lining is more open, we have gut permeability, or leaky gut's kind of the slang, there's more chance of your immune system to get in contact with undigested foods and create more antibodies for more stuff. So leaky gut's a big thing. And there's a lot of data saying, hey, even if you're not reacting to the gluten may still be opening up that gut lining, creating more gut permeability.
Well, here's one other thing to take it even further on the anti-gluten train, which is the fact that people say, I'm not sensitive to gluten. I don't have any rashes. I don't have any headaches. I don't notice joint pain after gluten. It doesn't matter. We've seen in many, many, many pieces of literature, just Google non-celiac gluten sensitivity, and you can read about it for yourself. Even in a person who says, I notice, quote, nothing from eating gluten, we still notice that the secretory IgA gets lowered, that gut barrier gets broken open, you get leaky gut. There's no like, I'm a tough guy, I grew up in Wisconsin growing corn and I eat corn and gluten and I love it. No, it doesn't matter. You're going to have a leaky gut no matter if you notice anything or not. And why is that important for thyroid health? Well, because once the gut's leaky, now let's say you get bacteria and parasites and toxins from the food supply, you breathe in some guy's diesel truck in front of you on the highway, those toxins have direct access to the bloodstream, and we know that when the gut is leaky, the blood-brain barrier is also going to be leaky, and then you're getting toxins into the brain. So you go and eat some tuna fish on your night out at sushi, and that mercury could go into your brain now because your gut was leaky and it had access. So, I kind of have like a zero tolerance, policy. I like how Rodney Ford, he was a gastro doc I had on the podcast like 7 years ago or something crazy. It was like one of the first episodes I did. He said, I don't like the term gluten-free. He said, I like the term gluten zero because gluten-free sounds, just like it's choice or like it's a recommendation. But he said the idea of gluten zero is much more direct and blunt. It's like, no, you don't want any, because even we've seen, you and I, we test the antibodies. We look at anti-gliadin IgA on the stool test. And what we see is that even up to 3 months, 4 months after somebody's had gluten. Here we are in early March at the time of this recording. Someone could have had a bunch of cookies at Christmas, and we could still see 3 months later the antibodies elevated because of that.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm pretty puritanical when it comes to gluten. I will admit I did have a cinnamon bun last night, but it was gluten-free, and I typically never cheat. I ended up getting within 30 minutes after it a sore throat, and it's lingering right now. I'm doing some essential oil lozenges to help
Was
it
it rice
improve.
flour, or what was it that did
It
that
was
to
rice
you?
flour. It was rice flour, and it could have just been the carbs. It was pretty carb heavy, but it just makes me think like, there's one more sitting in the fridge. Am I gonna have it tonight? Hell no. For my cheat, I'll do my Siete chips and some fresh homemade guacamole instead for my little carb treat. But yeah, so even that, I still had the decision, should I stop at Dunkin' Donuts and get like the awesome cinnamon bun that I have memories of 20 years ago when I used to eat not so good food? But no, I at least chose a healthier option, but still I kind of recalibrate and say it's still not worth it. So try to find a healthier option if you want to splurge. If your autoimmune condition is under control and you don't have an autoimmune condition, maybe you splurge every now and then on the holidays. My recommendation, though, is you find a healthier option. And if you have thyroid antibodies, you definitely need to. I have thyroid antibodies, so you really got to make sure that you're on the right track. There's a lot of healthy options these days. It's crazy. I mean, I had I think it was Danielle Walker's got a new pizza that's like a yucca-based pizza, and it's freaking awesome. It's really good, and the crust is great. It's a little carb heavy, so I save it for my carb night, but it's a great pizza.
Wow, she makes it?
Yeah, it's in the Whole Foods section now. It's frozen, but it's a yucca-based crust.
And is it already, it's just a crust and you got to put all your own toppings?
No, it's got everything on it already, but she's got some, I think, where you can buy it without the toppings. But I just love yucca for crust because yucca is just like, it's just soft. It's really moist too.
I'll have to look for it. I want to point out what you said. I think it's very important, which is that you may go off your diet for a bit and play with this food and play with that food is kind of a treat. But like you said, it's not worth it. And, people think when we come up with a diet protocol for them that it's like a diet of deprivation. But overall, I would say you and I are not deprived at all. We're eating good fats, good meats, good veggies. I mean, this is not a deprivation or starvation diet required.
No, I mean, last night for dinner, I had a dry aged Kansas City strip steak, step 4 from Whole Foods. And I had it last night with some green beans and grass-fed butter and some sea salt, and it was phenomenal. So I try to eat really good like that. I keep it simple, The night before that, we threw some stuff in the Instapot. 40 minutes later, some vegetable. I think we had some celery, some carrot, and some chicken, and it was great. I mean, keep it really simple, easy.
I did some haddock last night. I had a couple different fish. I had some haddock and some cod, and then we did some sweet potato fries that we baked. And then we did some broccoli. My wife is all into fresh broccoli now because we were doing frozen broccoli, but it's a game changer to do fresh. So hopefully when I get my garden, we've got snow on the ground. Hopefully I can get my garden going and get some fresh broccoli. Last year, even despite my really good fencing operation around my raised garden bed, those darn rabbits, they ate all my broccoli. So I didn't get any. I had to buy it all at the store or the farmer's market.
100%, man. That's really cool. Very cool. Let's talk about, someone asked about iodine and iodide. So basically iodide is the ion form of iodine. So you have basically the chemical structure of iodine is 2 molecules of iodine. And so essentially iodide is 1. So typically iodide's bonded to a salt, whether it's a sodium salt or a potassium salt. And then in your body converts it and puts it together and makes iodine out of it. So you can have 1 molecule is iodide, 2 is iodine. You take it and then it converts it in the body and it goes through iodination and it can make it iodine.
How do you approach that with clients in terms of supplementing?
I typically use a potassium iodide.
Yep.
How
often do you supplement it? Is that something where it's like, yep, a little amount is always going to be okay? Because there was a whole, fear mongering about, supplementing iodine can increase your thyroid antibodies, but I've not found that to be true at a low amount.
I mean, it's potential, but if someone has active thyroid autoimmune stuff, we just don't go more than the RDA, which is between 150 to 250 micrograms. And if we see they're stable and or they don't have any, then we may play around with going up to a gram or to maybe 1.3 milligrams, 1.5 milligrams. Right? RDA is 150 to 250 micrograms. So typically within 5 or 10x of the RDA.
Okay.
But there's a lot of data in the literature on that. So I can just tell you, I've seen people go too high in iodine and lose their hair. So you got to be careful.
Wow. I've got another question for you if you're ready. The one here from Doc JC. What is your take on using LDN for Hashimoto patients? I do see the antibodies dropping and symptoms improve. Curious if you've seen the same.
Yeah. So first off, it's not the first place I go. The low-hanging fruit's going to be obviously an autoimmune template to start, getting good nutrients on board, getting enough selenium on board, CoQ10, magnesium. These are really important. Then after that, I would go to like curcumin, things like that first. Those would be the first things I would get in there first. You could even play around with resveratrol. I would do that first. And then maybe even CBD. I would try to do CBD over LDN, but I have seen some people do okay on LDN. I've seen some people do worse on LDN. So I try to go to the more natural compounds first before I go to an opiate blocking drug.
Agreed. And I can't prescribe it. So even if I could, I wouldn't, because my toolbox is limited to using natural professional grade products and nutrients and herbs. So I just don't even have it on the table for me. So I just have to assume that I got to fix the issue with other things. And you and I've seen hundreds of times that when we just fix the gut, we've seen antibodies drop from 2,000, 3,000 to sub 500 just by fixing the gut and changing nothing else.
Yeah, I mean, the gut's obviously the next big component, but supplement-wise, curcumin, resveratrol, selenium, CoQ10, magnesium, autoimmune template, and then, of course, working on the digestion, working through all the 6 Rs. Enzymes, removing bad foods, replacing digestive support, hormones, removing infections, re-inoculating, repopulating probiotics, and then retesting.
We've got a couple other questions here. What's your schedule look like? How much time you got left?
I got enough time. I got 10 minutes here.
Perfect. I'll just give people another plug. If you haven't registered for Justin Summit, please do. thyroidresetsummit.com. It's great. If you're like geeking out on this, you're about to geek out times 30 for the next week. Every day you're going to get to hear Justin in your ear for like 6 hours. So better put some headphones on, get your nice cup of chamomile tea, and sit down and have a good listen. And Justin did videos too, so that's cool. If you want to see the interviews as opposed to just listening, you can do both. And if you do end up buying his summit, you do get transcripts. So I know we're getting a little tricky, a little complicated sometimes in these interviews. You may want to have the transcript available so you can refer back to that.
Wonderful. 100%.
Right.
What's the next questions?
Yeah, so that's my plug. And the next question from Colin is, any recommendations for, he said dedicated, but he meant desiccated, and we know what you meant. So any recommendations for desiccated thyroid? Have you heard of the company Thyrovens? And I have not.
I have not. In my line, we have a product called ThyroBalance that is a natural glandular support I use with my patients that I've formulated. I love that. It's worked great. I've used it on thousands of patients. On the prescription side, I do like WP Thyroid. It's a very clean formula. NP Thyroid is another newer one out that's very similar to iron. It does have a little bit of maltodextrin from corn in there, so you got to be a little careful. The other good one's going to be Natrethroid. Supposedly, Natrethroid has a couple more ingredients than WP. Some people, if you check out my summit interview with Guillermo Ruiz, we talked all about that, but he said there does not have extra ingredients. It's the same formula, but if you look on the back, there is lactose in Natrethroid. There's no lactose in WP. Oh. So WP is the cleanest, but he seems to think they're both equivalent. So Natrethroid and or WP will be kind of number 1 and 2. WP first, Natrethroid second if you're going to go the prescription route.
Supposedly Acella, A-C-E-L-L-A, is supposed to be really good.
NP. That's who makes NP.
Oh, okay.
I'm pretty sure that's who makes NP Thyroid. That's the company.
Excellent. All right. Here's another question.
And then just to be 100% clear on the question, though, is with a natural thyroid glandular, you're getting T4, which is typically all you get in a synthroid, Levoxyl level thyroxine support, but you're also getting T3, T2, T1, T0, calcitronin, and protomorphogenic proteins, which are in there, which are natural growth factors. And taking thyroid glandular can also help lower your antibody levels too, which is great. So if you need it, great. We don't want to give it unless we need it.
Yeah, I was going to say, how do you rate when you need it versus, let's say someone was on a prescription, is it possible that they are not doing well with a prescription like a Synthroid, but they may do and feel better and be able to use a glandular instead of that with the help of their doctor getting them off of the drug?
Well, you're going to need it if one of two factors or both are there. TSH is elevated. That could be the conventional range, which is 5.5 on the East Coast, 4.5 on the West Coast. Or I use the the Association of Clinical Endocrinologists standings. Once there's above 2.5, I'm careful. Okay, you're above 2.5, 3 is kind of my cutoff. But then I look at the free T3 levels. I look at T4, T3. How's that conversion happening? And is there adequate levels of T3, at least 3.0 on a free T3? If we see a little bit less than that, we'll look at symptoms and we'll see if it's necessary to do anything. If we're on the fence and we're close and the adrenals are shot, we may leave it alone and go after the adrenals and come back on that, because sometimes that's enough to fix it. If the adrenals look okay, or if the thyroid's very low, we'll come in there with support, get the TSH under control so the brain's not screaming at the thyroid and getting it swollen. And then we'll also get that functional T3 level up to an optimal range, 50% of the reference range. So typically above 3 or so. Other countries, it's different, but you want to be at least 50% in the reference range.
Would that, you're saying take care of everything else like adrenals and all that, you're saying circle back to the thyroid glandular is kind of a last ditch effort. You would approach adrenals, maybe thyroid nutrients first before thyroid glandular.
If we're close. The only exception would be if the TSH is high, even if they didn't have any symptoms, but the TSH was high, let's say above 3 to 4, then I would definitely look at bringing that on a little bit sooner. If it was 3, I may hold off and just see maybe if we get the HPA axis back on track, we're good. If we're in the 4 up, I'm definitely going to at least bring it down to 1 in the meantime.
Okay, so if we got a TSH of 5, we've got a free T3 of 2, you're saying, yeah, probably going to need the glandular.
Definitely need the glandular. Now, if we have a TSH of 3 and a T3 of, let's say, 3.2, that's where it becomes very questionable. I'd want to look at symptoms, and I want to look at the thyroid or the adrenals as well as the thyroid. And I'd probably say let's table doing anything directly with hormones on the thyroid for at least a month and just focus on more nutrients and the adrenals. And I'd come back and retest probably in 4 to 8 weeks and see where we're at.
Well said. And we've seen massive swings in hormones in the right direction just by focusing on adrenals. It blows my mind because I wasn't someone that was comfortable with thyroid glandulars personally and recommending those to clients. I'd kind of stayed away from it because I saw with doing rhodiola and, as you mentioned, some of those special maca extracts and ashwagandhas and shajandra berries and helping the liver and detoxing. All of a sudden we look and it's like, whoa, TSH is normal. We didn't even try to focus on thyroid and it fixed itself just with fixing the body. I love when that happens.
100%. I love it. And we're getting to the root cause. We're not just going to throw everyone on the same thing. We're really trying to individualize the approach, which is really important.
We got a question here from Paul. How is calcium D-glucarate daily for detoxification? We use calcium D-glucarate all the time.
Yeah, it's a Detox Aminos product. It binds to estrogen, so it really helps aid in estrogen detoxification. So if a woman has estrogen detox, or if we see estrogen levels with a guy as well, it's good to help bind it and pull it out. So I think it's great. Just want to make sure that we're also getting to the root cause. If it's just part of a general detoxification program, I think it's great. It's going to help with thyroid binding globulin and help with increasing free T3 if there's excess estrogen.
Yeah, I don't use it in isolation. Same thing as you. I do have it in a liver support product or a hormone support product. There's kind of a couple things out there that we use. Will be blends of herbs plus calcium D-glucarate added in for PMS and breast tenderness and moodiness and irritability and all that stuff. We do see the calcium D-glucarate does move the needle.
100%. Next question.
Laura gave us some feedback. Thank you so very much for explaining crucial information about gluten. I've tried for years to get people to realize that gluten hurts us all. I agree, Laura. Thank you for the feedback. And some people have to hit rock bottom before they listen to you. So unfortunately, that's the reality.
Yeah. And again, some people, they have the mindset of like everything in moderation. It just depends. I don't necessarily buy that. There's probably never going to be a moderate amount of cocaine or methamphetamines that I'll ever do. But I get the fact that some people, may not have that genetic predisposition. They may not have an autoimmune genetics that are active, but I still think you got to be careful. If there's an option to do something on the safer side, on the gluten-free, grain-free side, it's better. It's better to do that. But I get why some people may feel like they get a little bit more freedom, when you have a little bit more health, so to speak, and a little bit less genetic predisposition. It makes sense why you do that.
Yep. Got a question here. My friend has Hashimoto's and only 20% of her thyroid. She tried Nascent Iodine. Her face broke out with little lumps like pimples. Any idea why, and what can she do to supplement iodine?
Well, if she has Hashimoto's, I know that's Dr. Group's product. It's a good iodine product. You just got to be careful because you can go really high in it, number one, and that could elevate antibodies. Number two, you could be pushing out other halides like bromine, right? And that could be causing the detoxification issue with the skin as you're pushing that out to the skin. So first thing
Interesting.
I
So
would
you're
do is,
saying, let me ask you this.
yeah,
This is mind blowing. So that you're saying that nascent iodine could kind of clear out that receptor site?
potentially, but it could also activate autoimmunity if that's there too. It could throw it
Yeah.
up too high. So, I mean, if I were to do it, I would make sure that if she's my patient, we're working for a few months, we're stabilizing inflammation in the diet, all the other nutrients are present. Because with high amounts of iodine, the iodination process spits out hydrogen peroxide, H2O2. And with inadequate selenium levels, hydrogen peroxide is inflammatory in the thyroid. So with adequate selenium, we convert that H2O2, we pull off an oxygen to it, and we make it H2O, we make it water, something benign. So we got to be careful with the iodine and the lack of selenium, especially if antibodies are elevated.
Yeah, well said. Selenium's huge. That's like critical. If you don't address that, it's very easy to fix that too. It's like one of the cheapest supplements ever. It's funny, people question the whole Brazil nut thing. People say, oh, only a few Brazil nuts per day is enough for selenium. I'd looked at some studies comparing that, like supplementation of actual selenium, like a chelated selenium versus a Brazil nut. It actually, surprisingly, the Brazil nut actually held up. It actually did work.
Yeah, I mean, the big difference with a Brazil nut is there's like a 10-to-1 ratio of how much selenium could be there. So it's just, you don't know if you're doing 2 or 3 Brazil nuts hoping for 20 or 40 microgram or 200 micrograms of selenium, you may get 20, you may get 30, right? That's the problem with it. So I think it's okay if you want to do 1 or 2, but I think at least get your insurance policy of 200 micrograms of selenium via supplement form a day. That's your insurance policy.
Yeah, I love the idea of food as medicine, but I agree with you. That's not something you want to dabble with. Like, why try to get it from Brazil nut if you can spend $8 and get the best selenium product on the market in capsule form, and you know exactly what therapeutic dose you're getting in terms of milligrams right there on the bottle versus, oh, yeah, this is a big Brazil nut. This must be 20 milligrams. It's like, no.
Exactly. And Brazil nuts are commonly moldy too. So if you have mold issues, there could be a problem there. Not saying
Well,
don't,
yeah.
I'm just saying, if you want to have 1 or 2, fine, but just get your 200 from supplement, from selenium
Yeah.
methionine primarily.
Well, pesticides too. I've never seen organic Brazil nuts on the market. I don't want something sprayed.
I know. And then you also have the phytates and the other types of oxalate compounds in there too, for sure.
I thought we had a question about oxalates. I don't know if
We
it was
did. I
related to
saw that.
thyroid.
Someone asked about how do oxalates affect your thyroid, I think, right?
Yeah, here it is. What do you guys know about high oxalates and Hashimoto's? Is there a connection? Let me just say something first.
Yeah.
What I've seen is that high oxalates are directly related to high Candida. We've seen a lot of yeast. Like when I see Candida high, I always see oxalates high. And then when you fix the Candida, the oxalates magically go down. So I would just I would kind of change that question, and I would just say, what do you guys know about high oxalates, Candida, and Hashimoto's? And I would say the answer is they're all related.
Yeah. Also, I would say that a lot of high oxalate foods are high goitrogens too. And these goitrogens can block iodine uptake. So if you're doing a lot of raw cruciferous vegetables, broccoli, cabbage, right? Those type of things that can easily block iodine uptake. If you're doing a lot of it raw, that's going to really have some major impact. So if you're cooking it, you're steaming it, you're putting it in soups, you're going to have less of it for sure. But too much of that, if we have low thyroid, we got to be careful with too much of that on the raw side because that can definitely block our iodine uptake.
I'm guessing you've seen raw vegans that have thyroid problems.
Oh yeah, I mean that's a huge thing. Also, raw vegans tend to not have enough protein to make other hormones, so they can have other problems going on too.
Did you see that article? There was an article the other day that went kind of viral. This medical doctor wrote that the vegan diet killed my mother early. Did you read that?
No, I think I heard of this though.
Let me see if I can pull up this so I can say it. Yeah, so here it was. It was in the UK. It was in London. This guy, Dr. Asim, we may want to get him on the podcast. He wrote a letter basically about this. And he's a cardiologist. His name's Dr. Asim, Malhotra. He said, my mother's diet was full of here's the thing I didn't read before. Her diet was full of ultra processed foods. So it talks about how she was a vegan or vegetarian rather, but that she was consuming tons of biscuits, crisp, and starchy carbohydrates. So she probably had an unhealthy vegetarian diet, but the way he wrote it made it just seem like the vegetarian diet overall killed her. But no, if she's eating that crap, that makes sense.
Yeah, she's on a lot of carbohydrates. But yeah, one thing that you'll see, this is good for anyone listening, is with vegans, vegetarians, go look at their hands, because what they're doing is they're getting a lot of plant-based beta carotene, and they're hoping that converts to vitamin A. With low thyroid, you'll see a lot of the orange deposits in their skin or their hands or their feet, because they can't convert that beta carotene to vitamin A, to active retinol palmitate. And vitamin A is important for the thyroid receptor sites. So you'll see with some of these vegan vegetarians, they're not getting active vitamin A from animal products or cod liver oil. So you'll see beta carotene deposits in their skin, orangey skin.
Whoa. Well, I always trip people out about looking at the ridges on your fingernails for malabsorption infections. But now I have something else to look at. Hey, let me see your hands. I'm going to look at your nails. Now I'm going to look at your palms.
Yeah, I mean, it's always good to look at it. It just shouldn't be excessively orange, but that's a big thing. And vitamin A is really important for your thyroid. Excellent sources, of course, are going to be healthy. Egg yolks, I think you're going to get it in. You're also going to see it in any type of high quality grass-fed meat. You're going to see it in cod liver oil, and you're also going to see it in like liver glandular for sure.
There's a question here, which is a treatment-oriented question, so you'll have to become a client of Justin's if you want to dive into supplements and protocols, but I'll still read the question anyway in case, Justin, you want to say something else.
Yeah.
With slightly low free T3, should thyroid balance 1 capsule be taken every day? And Dr. J, do you take your thyroid replete or balance?
I do not need my thyroid replete or balance. My T3 levels are above 3 and my TSH stays in the low 2s or in the mid 1s. So I just don't need it. But my multi has enough selenium in there and other nutrients for my thyroid to work. I just don't need it based on my lab. So I only recommend things that patients need that we can objectively quantify. But in general, the levels were what again? Low T.
You just said with slightly low free T3, it was a 2.7.
Yeah, so it would depend on the other symptoms that are going on. It would depend on how the adrenals are doing. But that's borderline. What was the TSH?
TSH 1.3.
I probably would say no on that. I'd want to look at the adrenals more thoroughly. I'd probably say no. I'm very if TSH and T3 are, if TSH is good and T3 is close, I tend to say let's hold off and work more on nutrition and the adrenals.
See, here's the problem, though, with trying to get advice like that on YouTube or wherever else on the internet. We know nothing about this guy. We don't know how he sleeps. We don't know his stress. We don't even know what his symptoms are. He may feel perfectly fine with a free T3 of 2.7.
Symptoms. Yeah, exactly.
You may feel amazing, and then you're trying to fix something that doesn't really need to be fixed. If you feel amazing, you might not need to do anything. So kind of, don't fix it if it's not broken. Obviously, if we knew, hey, I had terrible anxiety and heart palpitations, and I couldn't sleep, and I had skin rashes, and we had a more complete picture, then Justin may be able to say, well, maybe your free T3 is a little low because of X, Y, Z, and we can fix that, and here's the data to prove what you got in your gut.
Yeah, exactly. So there could be other things that are causing it that on the gut that will improve it. So hold off, but if you want to dive in and become a patient, we can also talk a little bit deeper on that.
Yep. Missy, thank you for your summits. I've learned so much and appreciate both of your time and knowledge. Missy, it's our pleasure.
Appreciate it. And then someone wrote in about potato juice curing diabetes type 2. It's a little off question, but because diabetes is intimately connected to thyroid issues, diabetes commonly causes low levels of thyroid conversion because high levels of insulin can disrupt thyroid conversion. That's why blood sugar is so important and keeping inflammation down. But I'd be careful. Anytime a juice, I get concerned with excess sugar and insulin resistance being a problem. That being said, there's a high amount of potassium in potatoes. So it could just be some of these extra minerals that are there. But I would say probably stay away from the excess sugar if there's high levels of insulin and you're type 2 diabetic.
This other question here, are you saying Candida overgrowth in the gut can be linked to kale intolerance? Maybe in a roundabout way, yes, but no, not directly. What I was saying is that when we see on the organic acids test that we have an elevation in oxalates, generally speaking, Candida is a contributing factor to why oxalates are driven up. I had high oxalates at one time on my organic acid test. I did not eat hardly any leafy green vegetables for a significant period of time when my gut was a mess, and I still had high oxalates. I didn't have many other foods with oxalates in them, so I saw it when I fixed the yeast in my gut, and then eventually found out I had Candida in my home and had to fix the Candida in my home because especially if you have dogs have Candida on them, and then they jump in your bed and they spread the Candida to your bed. and then you breathe it in and it recolonizes your gut. So if you're working with a practitioner and you keep beating yourself up because you feel good and then you feel bad, you feel good, you feel bad, you could have Candida driving that oxalate problem. And if that gets to extreme levels, you could end up with kidney stones and all sorts of problems. So, fix your gut, but fix your home too. That's going to be like my new motto.
Yeah, I mean, the more people, let's just say, have inflammation, dysregulation in guts and gut issues, and that can create more oxalate sensitivity. Again, things like potassium and magnesium are really important for oxalate clearance. Now, kale is actually kind of a lower oxalate food. It's the spinach. Spinach is the big higher one, so you got to be careful with spinach. But again, having enough good quality magnesium and potassium in your diet or supplementally can also help clear oxalates. We're talking food oxalates. Oxalates high on an organic acid test, that's more of an indirect Candida marker. So you'd want to look at like D-arabinitol or D-arabinatic if you're using the GPL test, and tartaric acid, other things like that.
Yep. Well, that's all the questions. I think we killed it, and we donated an extra 10 minutes of time here. So why don't we wrap this thing up? I'll tell people again about your summit website.
Excellent.
It's thyroidresetsummit.com. I mean, we're expecting probably 50, 60, maybe 70, 80, who knows, 1,000 registrants. So if you're not coming to the party, then you're missing out. So this is going to be probably one of the biggest events of the year, honestly, because thyroid problems are epidemic in the U.S. I'm sure I could pull up some random statistic for you from the CDC if you wanted to, but I'll just tell you what Justin and I see, which is that there are countless men and women out there with Hashimoto's, and they don't even know it. It's undiagnosed autoimmune thyroid conditions around the world. These men and women are having anywhere from 1 to 1 million symptoms. It could be heart palpitations and anxiety one day, and they're energetic, and then the next day they're exhausted and they don't know why. And then the next morning they wake up in the middle of the night and they have heart racing in the middle of the night and they don't know why. When that thyroid gets attacked by the immune system, it can squirt out little pieces of thyroid hormone and cause you to feel crazy. So please make sure that you get your antibodies tested, your TPO, your TG, maybe your TSI if you think you need to, because something you educated me on is that you can have Hashimoto's and you can have Graves at the same time, which sounds insane.
Yeah, you can. And 1 out of 5 women have an autoimmune issue. And one of the most common thyroid issues, over 30 million people have it and don't even know, is Hashimoto's. And the big issue with that is it's going to create inflammation. It's eventually going to destroy your thyroid tissue, low thyroid hormones, and it create all kinds of symptoms. And women tend to be more predisposed. I mean, I'm a guy, I have Hashimoto's too. So this isn't, just me only reaching the females out there. Men have it too. So you got to look at it. Women are a little more predisposed because estrogen can affect the CD4 to CD8 immune cell ratio and can make you more predisposed to autoimmune issues. But heck, we know guys are getting exposed to lots of estrogens too via the food and the plastics and the pesticides. So that's another predisposing factor that can even make guys more susceptible, even like myself. So make sure you register. Thanks so much, Evan, for the great podcast today. Make sure you sign up and get that free 88-page ebook. My real book, The Thyroid Reset, is coming out in the coming months ahead. So stay tuned. Thanks so much and have a phenomenal day. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Got a question for Dr. J? Go to BeyondWellnessRadio.com and click the questions button. Then tune in to hear the answer. Also, if you like the show, click below to review us on iTunes. For more Beyond Wellness Radio, go to BeyondWellnessRadio.com.